Time to re-up YouTube. It's your boy Mustard back with another video. And when I tell you guys, I have never been more angry in my life than how I was last night watching the Milwaukee Bucks versus the Miami Heat in Game 5. The conclusion to a series in which an 8th seed defeated a number 1 seeded team in the playoffs. And I don't care if Giannis played only 2 games in this series, hell, he could have played 5 minutes for all I care. This was an unacceptable loss from the Milwaukee Bucks in this series. Whether it's poor coaching decisions or just bad play on the court, everything all around was a collapse for this team in this series. And what's crazy to me is the amount of Bucks fans that tried to sit there and call me a fool for pointing out a lot of these issues earlier on in the season. I made a video where I questioned the Bucks' legitimacy because I saw how much their offense struggled, especially in the half court, and I brought those things to light. And so many Bucks fans were shitting on me. So many Bucks fans were calling me a hater, saying I don't know basketball. And you would think by the way they were talking that I spent the entire video just shitting on Giannis, saying he has no skill and no bag. When in all actuality, you guys know I love Giannis. He is one of my favorite players in the league, but he is not going to be held back from my criticisms in this video.
Giannis got the ball to Chris. Chris attacked. You know, that's how we always play. It's been very good for us.
Let's start off with the coach before we get into the big three. Coach Bud has been on the hot seat for a long time, and I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Now is the time for the Bucks to pull the trigger and fire his sorry ass. People talk so much about how Giannis and the Bucks' legacies were saved with KD's foot on the line, when they ignore the fact that if KD's foot was not on that line and it was actually a 3, Coach Bud would be out of Milwaukee right now. How many times in regular season games or postseason games have we seen this man basically give the game away with bad coaching decisions, lack of adjustments, timeout mismanagement? We saw the exact same thing in this Heat series. Now, am I gonna put everything on Coach Bud? No, that's what we have the other segments of this video for. But how many times did we see the Heat go on runs in this series and Coach Bud just sat there with his hands in his pants, not even thinking about calling a timeout? I mean, on that last play in Game 5 where Grayson Allen turned into Julian Newman at the end of the game clock, do not forget the fact that the Bucks literally have a timeout. And it's wild that I say this at the same time that I'm seeing a quote from Eric Spoelstra, the opposing team's coach. Even he was befuddled at the fact that this guy didn't call a timeout. Then you throw in the fact that he gave Jimmy Butler no other defensive coverages throughout the entire series. I understand that the Bucks POA defense is pretty dog shit outside of Jrue Holiday. I understand that Giannis has a back injury, but to keep throwing the exact same looks at a guy that just dropped 50, 40, 30, all these games, he is cooking your defense, and you give him the exact same coverage over and over and over? Just like the saying goes, the definition of insanity is repeating the same thing and expecting a different result. That basically summarizes Bud's entire coaching career, whether it was in Atlanta or now in Milwaukee. And I'm telling you right now, with Nick Nurse available, this better have been the last time that we saw Coach Bud in that city. Now we gotta talk about this terrorist Jrue Holiday. When I tell you guys I have never wanted to hit an NBA player more than I did yesterday, Jrue Holiday, I'm talking about you. This guy is 6'3", 230 plus pounds, defined to the muscle, and yet he still goes out there and he plays CTE basketball. He's smoking layups, he can't buy a bucket, he's turning it over, he does his little sidestep 3 that's always a brick, and I would somewhat find it acceptable if on the defensive end he had a major impact, but he didn't throughout this entire series. We're talking about Jimmy Butler talking to this man as if he's his own slave. They're down 6 points with 2 minutes left and Jimmy Butler's telling him, "I own you," and then he proceeds to do exactly that. own this man. When I say that Drew Holiday is one of the most overrated players by his peers, I am not lying to you. NBA players consistently will say that Drew Holiday is the best defender in the league. They actually just did a poll where they voted him the best defender in basketball. And look, I understand that Drew Holiday is an amazing player. Don't get me wrong, he has value that he brings to the game at a high level. But I don't ever want to hear anybody gas up his defense more than it should be. This series is a perfect example of why rim protection will always be more valuable than POA defense. At the end of the day, a point of attack defender can always be abused by the best of the best offensive players, and this was Jimmy Butler. This wasn't Giannis, this wasn't LeBron, this wasn't Steph. It was Jimmy fucking Butler, who's an amazing player, especially in the playoffs. But nobody still considers this guy a top 5 offensive player in the league. Hell, some people will probably say he's not even a top 10 offensive player in the league. Drew Holiday should be ashamed of himself for that pathetic ass performance on both sides of the ball. Jimmy had this man jumping for joy on every single pump fake. He was bitching this guy in the post. He took him off the dribble as if he was Enes Kanter, for Christ's sake. Meanwhile, Drew would come down the court in transition, sidestep 3 brick, get to the rim, open layup brick. It's the ending of game 4 and we need a bucket, turnover. And hey, we need a free throw to ice the game in game 5. Oh, I'm gonna miss that too. This guy is a sorry, pathetic excuse of an all-star. And the fact that they gave up 4 first-round picks for him and extended him to a max contract, it's nasty work. Drew, if I had it my way, I would get you out that city immediately because you're doing irreparable damage to my Giannis GOAT agenda. Now, I won't spend too much time on Middleton because I'm gonna be real, out of all the players in this series, Middleton actually lived up to his reputation more than the others. And that's not necessarily a good thing in this case because Middleton, he was mid. This is typically what he does. He has a couple of nice stretches and performances here and there, but for the most part, he's a mediocre all-star caliber player. That's it. Middleton in this series, despite having moments of excellence offensively, had a lot of moments of trash offensively as well. When the Bucks were dominating the game, Middleton had 17 points in the first quarter alone in game 5. Then throughout the remainder of the game, this guy goes 4 of 17 from the field. I kid you not. 4 of 17. When you talk about inconsistent offensive players, Middleton fits the bill, and that's why I question if Middleton is actually a legitimate number 2 on a championship team, or was the 21 season really just an outlier for him? Mind you, I didn't even address his defensive inefficiencies because Jimmy Butler was switch hunting this guy every single chance he got. Middleton is not the defender that he was 2, 3, 4 years ago. Laterally, he is much slower than he was before. As an athlete, he's gotten worse, primarily due to the knee injuries, and if I'm being honest, I don't even know if he's really even a positive anymore. The most I can really say is that he's a neutral defender. That's it. And at the wing position in this league, to be a neutral and not a positive defender, that is a very alarming thing, especially for a team like the Milwaukee Bucks that already struggles in their point of attack defense outside of Drew Holiday. And with next year being potentially the final year of his contract, having a player option for $40 million, which he will obviously opt into, it makes me question what does the future hold not only for this Bucks team but primarily with Chris Middleton on it. Do you move him for assets in a sign and trade? Do you keep him and try to build for the future with him still as your second option? A lot of questions are circulating around Chris Middleton's future with this organization, and for good reason following this series.
Do you get a promotion every year on your job? No, right? So every year you work is a failure. Yes or no? No. Every year you work towards something, towards a goal.
Giannis, man. When I tell you, actually, fuck all this shit, man. Give me 1 second. Hey, is this shit on? Okay, it's on. Let's go. Look, as I've said numerous times on this channel, I am a Giannis fan and supporter. That's not gonna change after what I'm about to say. All this talk about how Giannis has no skill and no bag, it's finally caught up with him in this series. If you look at the second half of game 5 and overtime, it just shows and encompasses all the criticisms that people have had of Giannis over the last 3 to 4 seasons. Obviously, you have the lack of floor spacing, but we've accepted that and they've given you shooters, but you get to the free throw line and you're missing free throws as if you're Shaq. This guy had over 20 plus free throws and over 20 shots and had overtime and still couldn't crack 40 points. Do you know how impossible that is for an NBA player? You lack a real sound game when you get into the post, all you do is charge as if you're Derrick Henry. I understand that some of that comes with Bud's usage of Giannis in the half-court offense, but in a game like Game 5 where Bam fouls out, Kevin Love is in foul trouble, Kyle Lowry fouls out, and you still are struggling to score in the post? That's unacceptable work. I don't want to hear people put this all on Bud. Giannis needs to take just as much blame as Bud for what happened in Game 5. In the second half, Bam Adebayo had you in prison. Bud is not the reason why you have banana peel turnovers. Bud is not the reason why you miss free throws at this stage of your career in a critical playoff game. Bud is not the reason why you fouled Max Strus on a stupid closeout when you guys were down 2 points with less than a minute to go in the game. If anyone needs to look in the mirror in this series and understand that this loss is on him, yes, Drew Holiday's there, he needs to do that too, but Giannis, you need to do the exact same thing. And until Giannis can perfect a lot of these issues in his game, I don't want to hear no talk about him being the best player in the world. Kill that shit right now, because his offensive inefficiencies are a huge issue for this team, especially in the half court. How can you be a big man that still plays on the perimeter, but in the clutch, we can't go to you in the fourth quarter to close out these games? That's unacceptable behavior. I understand that Giannis needs his Robin. I understand he needs that second guy to be able to take over games with him, just like Shaq had Kobe. I get that. But it's so hard to play around a guy like this that commits so many goofy mistakes when you do give him the ball. Do you just want to treat him as if he's what, Ben Simmons in the fourth quarter? That's unacceptable. This offseason, I need Giannis to go to the depths of Greece and fix his game, the fundamental parts of his game, because this loss was unacceptable. Like I said earlier, I don't want to hear nothing about this man being the best player in the world. Kill that shit immediately. Look, man, I had high expectations for the Milwaukee Bucks. As you guys saw in my season preview, I had them as the #1 ranked team in the league. And somewhat, I was correct at the end of the regular season, but I ain't gonna lie, just after Game 1 alone, I was so scared for their chances to make it out of just the first round. And with the flaws all over this team, as it affects not only their coach, but their best player, second best player, and third best player, I don't think they need to blow the team up, but they need to consider making drastic changes all across this roster. Giannis basically has 2 more years left on his deal, as he has a player option after that, and let's be serious here, most players of Giannis status will opt out so they can get the most amount of money, which is smart. And if that's the case, then Giannis is at risk of potentially leaving the Milwaukee Bucks. And sure, you could say it's unlikely with Giannis pledging loyalty to that team and organization and city, but it's definitely a possibility. We've seen players backtrack for less than what Giannis has gone through over the last couple of years with this organization. This season was a complete failure for this organization. I don't care what Giannis said in that post-game press conference, he may have made some good points, but I'm gonna disagree. It was a failure. This team is fraudulent as hell, and until they actually make steps to fix these issues that I addressed in this video, I will never trust them ever again come playoff time. But hey, that concludes this video. You guys let me know your opinions down below in the comment section. Don't forget to drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and press that bell for post notifications. Follow me on social media, the links are down below in the description box. This is your boy Young Mustard signing out. You guys stay safe and have a blessed day. Peace.